found a bunch of blanks at a scrapyard, and I've cut them up and I'm going to use them. And I'm going to show you how to make a bronze knife. You, right there. I see you. If you want to stick around, that'd be great. And if you don't, go somewhere else. I really, whatever. Why are you still here? So this is some of the bronze that I picked up at the scrapyards. Something you're going to find that's recycled is not going to be like a historical bronze most of the time. Going to be mainly copper and tin. But this one right here is around 90% copper with a balance of iron. So it's an iron bronze, and that's kind of why you see what looks like rust on the outside of it. It gets like a rust type patina on the outside. It does polish up pretty well, and it is a very hard bronze, and it gets quite sharp. But these are 3 of the blades I made out of it. It takes me about an hour to 2 hours to make a blade, just depending on what I'm doing. And so I'm going to go over the process with you and show you how you can quickly make a blade out of bronze if you happen to find some bronze plate at a scrapyard. Or you can make it out of iron plate or brass plate or anything similar. Also keep in mind that if you do work with bronze, it will collect on your skin, on the sweat on your skin, and you will turn green sooner or later. If I wanted to make a bronze blade really quickly, and I'm saying really quickly within an hour or two, this is how to do it. Now you could just take a marker and draw you a blade on there real fast. Say something like that. You want a drop tip, something like that. Now looks good. Measure out a handle around 4 inches. So you could do right in there. Something like so, right? Okay, so we got a knife, sort of. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll take one of my templates. You could make these. This is made out of aluminum, which is easy to cut, which is why I like making templates out of aluminum. And I found these for fairly cheap at a scrapyard. So what I would do if I want to make a blade fairly quickly is I would use this fine tip black marker, set my template on there, and within a few seconds alright, there you go. Maybe a little hard to see, but I do have a black mark over there which I can trace with my bandsaw. So let's go do that. So I'm going to start grinding away, stock removal, anything that I don't want. I'm going to start with this edge and do a little bit on the back here, flip it over, do the same thing. And I'm not going to be using a regular sanding pad. I'm going to be using the most aggressive thing that I have, which is this rock. I know it should have a guard on it, but it doesn't, so I'm going to have to deal with it. So that's down to about halfway, and that took all of a minute and a half. And if you can see that, that is smoke coming off of it because this puppy's warm. Yes sir. That's why I put on gloves. I didn't want to do something stupid. And then I'm going to a 320 sanding pad. For the sake of the speed of the blade, I was going to leave the natural patina here and then just flip it over to the other side like I did here. So I kind of forgot to hammer harden this blade before I got it all shaped. Normally I would do that first and then cut it. I can go ahead and shape this other side and then hammer it, and then I'll just have to polish all the hammer marks back out of it. It'll cost me another few minutes probably. Okay, so you see that comes out fairly quickly. And then in order to straighten up this edge again quick, I'm just going to try to ride it up just a little bit before I smooth out the other side. I just held it up to the side. Anything that didn't look symmetrical, you sand it, look at it, sand it a little bit. That's how it's done. And so I'm here, ready to put a handle on it. I got this leopard wood, so I'm just going to kind of sit her on there like such. Maybe line it up with the bottom with this little tushy there. And just to keep it from being just straight and flat, I'm going to kind of put a little curvature to the top there. Yeah, something like that. Not straight at all. Okay, so of course I did not cut straight at all. I'm going to take the flat edges, the factory edges, and that's what I'm going to sandwich up against my blade here. To make it quicker, I'm going to go ahead and add the glue to it. You just got to make sure that everything's straight by the time you lock it down, and then I'm going to go ahead and drill the holes after I do that. And I do use a Gorilla Glue because it's very tough. I'm not really a big fan of like the 5-minute epoxy because, well, I don't know, 5 minutes ain't long enough for me to figure out what to do, and I don't need that kind of stress in my life. Probably break the blade or something else before you break off the Gorilla Glue. It's pretty tough. I'm just trying to smooth it out real quick. I don't want a bunch of gobs of glue squeezing out the edges. Now you look it over real quick to make sure everything lines up. Looks pretty straight. If there's anything off just a little bit, you can kind of tap it into place. I don't measure stuff. I just kind of, if I can do it by eyeball, I've noticed most people can't tell the difference. So there we go. I'll start with those two and then I'll worry about the third one after I drill those holes. Before I take these off, I'm going to go ahead and put these pins in here. A little glue on them. So looks like our third hole will go somewhere right in here. Okay, so I drilled that last hole, stuck a pin in there, and now we're ready for sanding. And I'm using an 80 grit, I believe, sanding pad. You can use something heavier or whatever you prefer, bro. There's that. I'm going to continue to work with it a little bit. Now I know this is a speed run, but we're trying not to move so fast that we don't add any character to the blade. Of course, that's what that was all about. It's just to give it a little character, not that it's going to do anything. So I'm going to put a little design right here using the angle grinder in the bottom of the handle. So that little added feature took all of 2 minutes, maybe. Now before I stain the wood, I'm going to go ahead and polish up the blade a little bit more. And I am going to be using one of these thingamabobbers. Here's one right here. It's a 220. Now these are made for stones, so it's important when you're grinding that the wheel is grinding away from the blade. Because if you go into the blade, well, it tends to explode on you, and well, it scares the crap out of you. So you don't want that. You want to go away from the blade, going up, turn the blade over, go away from the blade, going down. And this bad boy will polish it up quite nicely. You'll see. And here's how you quickly change a pad. Now you could use a tool if it's really stuck on there, but most of the time it's just on there. Not too bad. Hold the brake. There we go. I go from 80 grit to 220 grit, just like so. Now the hardest thing about these is sometimes getting them centered because they're not really made for these. Or this angle grinder, should I say. Man, I feel like a pincushion out here with all these mosquitoes. Probably lost a quart of blood in the last few minutes. Alright, this is a 600 grit right here. I had an 800, but I'm not sure where they went. I've either used them all or they've been stolen. Who knows, this day and age. So I got the blade now. I was careful not to get into my patinaed area because I didn't want to polish up the entire blade, but you know, if that's your thing, you like polishing blades, then you can do that. Okay, so this never happens, by the way. Ever, hardly. I can't remember the last time this has happened, but as I was polishing a little bit up the edges, my sanding pad caught something and it tore up the sanding pad, or it had a flaw in the pad itself and it busted. So it tore that edge here on the knife when I was just about done, ready to throw the coating on it. But I don't have any choice but to improvise, and I'm going to sand down into there and just rework it a little bit. So it'll be a little different shaped, but it'll still work. Shouldn't cost me maybe 10 minutes if it doesn't explode again.
So I just used that 120 that I had to redo it and redefine all these pieces here, since I had to grind some of them out. I'm going to repolish this a little bit, and then I'm going to throw the stuff on it. The stuff. Linseed oil. Probably shouldn't do this with your finger, but you know, I'm a rebel, and let me clean my finger off first. There we go. Nice and clean. Just throw that on there like so. Careful to get in all the little crevices. Okay, now I need to go in the house and get something to wipe that handle off a little bit. My darling, you're so beautiful. Last thing to do, dry this up a little bit and sharpen this blade, and we are done. So what I do to sharpen these really quickly is I just take some of these tungsten carbide milling bits. You can find these pretty commonly at scrap yards, and I stuck a couple of them in the vise here, and I'll just do the thing. You can watch and watch. Probably have 2.5, maybe even closer to 3 hours in this blade. I've timed myself a lot, and usually it takes me about an hour to an hour and 5 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes, depending on how many problems I run into, or how many mosquitoes, or how many mosquitoes I have to fight off out here in my open shop. So, but with all the moving the camera around and trying to keep the bloodsuckers off me, it took a bit longer. So there's that.